Let's go by the numbers in our second segment today, Said, and here's your number. $35 million. That's the contract. That's the salary now for Russell Wilson, highest paid in the NFL. That's big bucks, Cedric.
He's not Aaron Rodgers, but he is at the bank all of a sudden. Russell Wilson gave the Seattle Seahawks a deadline to get him signed up, or he was going to bail. He wasn't going to sign a franchise tag. He wasn't going to be that cat. He wanted to get his money. He wanted to get shored up for the rest of his career. He got his money. He is the franchise in Seattle. He is their Aaron Rodgers. He is their Tom Brady. And good for him, because I really think that the front office of the Seahawks has made some colossal mistakes, letting some really good offensive linemen go. Russell Okung is one that I remember that was a benchmark guy up front. And so Russell Wilson has been running for his life for the last 3 or 4 years, one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. And now at least he's got some financial security while he's on his back, running defensive ends in the NFC West, and there are several of them, especially with the Los Angeles Rams. So good that he got his money. What interests me is, how does that affect the market, Jen? Dallas Cowboys Dak Prescott is up for a renegotiation. He's not going to get Russell Wilson money, but I think that kind of moved the needle in his favor.
Yeah, and that's definitely a great point, and especially, with some of the big contracts we're seeing just around all of sport. It's definitely interesting to see how that's trickled over. Some of these marquee guys wanting and then getting bigger money. We just haven't seen the mega contracts into the 30 and 40 million in the NFL like some of these other leagues. Obviously, we've talked about guys like Trout and that sort of thing. The NBA obviously having these max deals now. So lots of big money out there. Doesn't seem to be going away. Seems to be getting bigger, which leads me to my number, Cedric. And it's on the opposite spectrum of the dollar signs. $56,000. That's the reported salary of Breanna Stewart, the WNBA star. Plays in Seattle. Speaking of Seattle, we're Seattle themed, but she's the reigning MVP of the WNBA, the reigning championship, the playoffs MVP in the WNBA. But she tore her Achilles while playing in Russia last week. She has to play year-round because the salaries in the WNBA are so low. They're going to renegotiate the contract soon, but Cedric, if the WNBA is serious about growing its league, I know that money is still in short supply with some of these franchises, but a star like Breanna Stewart, 4-time national champion at UConn, a known commodity, a known face in women's basketball, the league has got to pay these young stars or they're never going to be able to build that league because they got to go overseas to make the majority of their money. That, to me, says you got to start taking care of these players if you're really going to build on the momentum that they bring to the league.
And it's really sad because, Stewie is a super player. She does a little bit of everything. She can play inside, outside. And when you look at the salaries, I mean, she's a top 5 player in the WNBA, and she's making $56,000 a year. When a sports writer is looking down on what you make, that's tough, man. That's really tough. We're not running up and down a basketball court all year. And so these women have to go overseas to Israel, to Russia, to China, to places like that to make their money. And then they come back and play in the WNBA basically to stay in shape and to be at home. I know that you follow it really closely, Jen. And a couple of years ago, a team in Russia paid Diana Taurasi like $1.5 million to not play her WNBA season because they wanted her to rest her legs. She's in her 30s, and to me, she's the best player ever. Obviously, the greatest guard to ever play the game. And so when those teams are investing in their players, and they're not even American players, they're investing in Diana Taurasi, telling her, we respect you enough that we want you to be at full strength for our season. here's $1.5 million
Yeah.
to not play in America. And she takes that money and she sat out a couple of seasons ago. But then Stewie, hopefully had an insurance policy, blows out her Achilles because she's trying to make a living overseas. So they're going to have to do a better job of marketing. They're going to have to show that they love their players a little bit more. No reason for Breanna Stewart to ever be making 56 grand a year. She's a $500,000 player. They don't pay those kind of dollars. I think back in the day, the Lisa Leslies and the Candace Parkers were making like $250,000, but those women were making so much more money with Nike that it didn't really matter as much what they made for the WNBA.
Yeah, I just think it's so, I mean, it hurts the product, the WNBA, whether it's an injury situation or a quality of play. If you're playing year round, if you're playing that amount of basketball and not really having an off season, much like the Russian team did with Taurasi, paying her not to play. I mean, they saw the benefit in her rest. So the fact that Stewart is hurt, I think it shed light on this. It might make the WNBA rethink how they're doing those salary structures to try to have their stars fresher, obviously healthier in Stewart's case. We'll see how it plays out. I'm sure it's going to have some impact in some of those negotiations as they go on.